Alright, MySQL learners. So, in this lesson, we are going to look at MySQL Workbench. DBAs or database developers, they use a tool to create objects like tables, indexes, procedures uh, in the database, right? So, for Oracle, what I like using is Toad, Toad for Oracle, and sometimes I've used SQL Developer. But then for MySQL, you have a similar tool which is which is MySQL Workbench. So MySQL Workbench can be downloaded for free. So you can just go to dev.mysql.com and downloads and Workbench. And of course, I am actually going to show you the installation of MySQL Workbench on Mac, and it's like installing any other software, so it's not difficult at all. But on Mac, I want to show you a couple of nuances, because at the time of recording this video, this particular version of MySQL Workbench 8.0.23 has an issue, which is if you download this and install it on Mac, you will run into some issues. So what you need to do is go into Archive and choose a version that's a little bit old. So let's actually choose 8.0.20 and let's go ahead and download it. Okay, and just gonna double click on it, and it's installing MySQL Workbench, and then we just move it to applications folder, then we should be done. All right, let's move it to my applications folder, and we are done here pretty much. It just needs to copy everything to applications. All right, now let's try to start it, MySQL Workbench, and you will run into this error. Just hit OK, and also you need to go to System Preferences and Security and Privacy, and then you can see that there is a notification over here saying this MySQL Workbench.app was blocked from use because it's not from an identified developer, because it is open source. And we open it, open, and that's it. Actually, that is MySQL Workbench. So now we are going to go to our Linux machine, the VM that we created on AWS. And if you haven't, actually, you need to go and check out my last two videos. I showed you like how to create an EC2 instance and install MySQL on it. So do that and come back here. But then I have got my MySQL running already. So you can see that. And now let me log into the database first. This is the command, and I'm logging into MySQL schema and put the password. Okay, here let me run a query. We're just going to select the users which exist in the database, right? So we don't want to select all the columns. We're just going to select user and host. So basically these are the users which are available, and they are allowed to connect from this local host to this database, right? Because we are using root but we are connecting on the local host, it's fine. I cannot use the root user to basically make a connection on MySQL Workbench, basically, right? So that will not work. So that is a unique thing about MySQL. It basically, when you create a user, you can specify the machine from which that particular user is allowed to connect, or a bunch of machines, right? So let's actually create a user which is a little more open. All right, so I'm going to actually create a user called DBA user, and this is the command. So it's create user dba user at, and there is a percentage, which means actually basically from anywhere, and then identified by, and there's a password, right? So we do that, and then we grant super user privileges to this user, and then we do flush privileges for these privileges to take effect actually, right? Now that the user is created, let me tell you one more thing that is important, which is the security group that is assigned to your EC2 instance. The security group that I assigned is MySQL-SG, and then if you look at the rules, I added 3306 from anywhere. Like basically what it means is I am actually allowing TCP connections to connect via port 3306 from the world. And how can you do that? You need to go to security groups, and you need to select your security group, the one that you're using, inbound rules, and then edit rules. And then you can here you can add custom TCP or MySQL/Aurora, and this is the port, the default port of MySQL, and basically an IP or a set of IPs, or basically the world, whatever you want to give here. So this is how my rule looks. So that is really important, because if you don't allow connections, or if you don't add the rule here, your connection will not get through the firewall, right? The security wall. So cancel that, because I have already done it, right? I don't need to do it again. Now go back here, click on plus to make a connection. I'm going to call it MySQL test DB, and let me grab the public IP of my instance, which is over here, right there, and so it's right here if you haven't seen it, if that was really quick, right? And I'm going to put it here, and the name of the user is DBA user, and click on store in keychain and put the password over here. I'm just going to type it out. Okay, then default schema can be MySQL, and let's test it. All right, successfully made the MySQL connection, right? And this is the configuration, and this is the user. This is using 3306. Click OK, OK, and this connection is created. Let's double click. So it's opening the SQL editor, and that's the editor where you can now run queries. Remember the query I ran before? You can basically run the same query here, right here. So that's how it looks. So these are all the columns. Now it looks much better. Well, the thing with these kinds of tools is, well, it's not allowed to connect to your production databases in most of the cases, because your production databases are behind many firewalls, many security walls, and this one's on your laptop. So you probably will be able to use it with your non-prod databases, meaning test development and staging databases, but still it's a very useful tool. You can create ER diagrams, uh, meaning entity relationship diagrams. We'll talk a little bit about database design soon, but that's basically it. All right, I will see you guys in my next lesson. Thank you.